Hello, we are Nerds of the West. We are reviewing Dune Imperium with the Rise of X expansion and the upgrade kit. This is everything that you can currently get for Dune Imperium, a political intrigue, everyone backstabbing, going back and forth, worker placement, deck building combo game. When we played this last year, we ranked it 17th out of the 56 games that we played last year. 56 games that we played on stream, not only the games we played. That's how we rank every game. We rank every single game that we play on our list, and it's based on what we would prefer to play if given the opportunity, not necessarily what is better than something else. I'm curious to see where that goes, but that'll be the last thing we do at the end of the video, rank this and give an idea of where it ranks with the expansion, above where we put it last year. But we're going to go through how this game feels to play at the table, what we think of all the different components of the art, everything that you might need to know to get a thought of what the game actually is. If you want to see the game in its full, we just did a 3 and a bit hour playthrough.
I think about 4 hour.
4 and a bit hour playthrough of this game, which gives you an idea of how long it takes to play. Probably a half that because we have to, live stream. We live stream. That's what we're doing right now. Twitch.tv/Nerds of the West. Without further ado, what a game.
Man,
what a game.
I adore this game, and I'll go into the reasons why once we start digging in. Initial thoughts for all of you.
I love it. I think it's great. I love deck building. I love worker placement. This smashes them two really well. I am a big fan of the theme, so I love it. It's great.
Yep. Pretty much says it all. Well, it's a really good blend of worker placement and deck building. I think it does it better than other games that try to do it. And it's, I think the expansion adds a lot as well.
The expansion
changes
adds a lot and
up.
changes the balance quite a lot.
Yep.
I think it's a completely different game with the expansion, to be honest. I think that
Tactiles on their own. Giving yourself... So one of the things the expansion adds, and we'll go into it in more detail in a bit, is that these tactiles are basically constant upgrades that you can get, or endgame upgrades you can get. You Win Tiebreakers was the one that I've just used, and that was huge. Just the threat of that made you all have to fight against me.
Yep. Yep. Made everything a lot closer at the end.
Yeah, I also like this new board here. Obviously, if you're just watching this, it's got this piece that goes over the original board, so it covers up these spaces and makes some new ones. Really good. I like it a lot better. I think the spaces are a bit more balanced.
Because the last 3 times that we've played with Kai, he's run away with the game because he has just bought the Spice Must Flow cards, which are just straight victory points. If you get enough money to buy one, you get a victory point immediately. It does clog up your deck, but who cares if you can buy a victory point every single turn? The way you used to do that in the base game is by getting the spice from these spaces here and then selling it up here. That's not an option anymore. You have to get money elsewhere, which means the spice must flow, getting that to get you onto other spaces, I should say, because it's influence that gets you it. But just the fact that that's not a threat so much. Worm cards are something that you might buy once in the game, twice in Sean's case for the game we just played. But they don't become as big of a threat, which draws it back to my favorite thing about this game. 2 favorite things is the player interaction. Because it's a worker placement game, you're indirectly interacting with everyone else by taking the spaces that they want to be on. Kai's power in this game was that wasn't as much of an issue for him, but because all those indirect actions then end up being super direct in combat, everything influences where you're going. Hate drafting a spot in this game is an entirely viable strategy. If you know that I'm going up here to be on the shipping track, taking it away from me and ruining my entire round is a legitimate strategy.
100%.
I think that happened once or twice, but I don't think it was as prominent as it was in the base game. In the base game, it was a lot harsher than what it was with the expansion. And for a worker placement, I don't think that there was really, there's still quite a few spaces available. I don't think that the worker placement, crunch, was as severe.
I guess the crunch comes a bit more from if you don't draw the cards to get yourself onto that spot that turn.
Yeah.
That gets real crunchy.
Yeah, but then you can then buy the cards that you need to get
that
engine work.
But you also don't get those right away.
Yeah. Having a situation where I can't go to any Landsrad spaces, but everyone else is using these spaces sucks, because then it's I mean, it sucks on that turn, but it adds a lot of interest, or it adds a lot of that indirect interaction because you're fighting over fewer spaces, but not necessarily the same spaces every turn.
Yeah.
And also, like, you've got like your basic guild spaces, so the Chom, the Landsrad, which are all like your basic ones.
I
But then
appreciate
you've
the
got
expansion adds these extra Landsrad ones.
Yeah.
It needed that so badly.
Yeah, for sure. And then like you've also got the guild specific ones, which are a lot harder to get to as well.
Yep.
So there's like a difference in where you can put your workers. So you've got like 2 different zones basically where you can put your workers. Tom?
Yeah, I'm curious to know what you guys think of the theme and how it all ties in. Because this is, to me, a very thematic game.
It is. I think this this expansion especially has made a much bigger focus on combat, which I think pulls out more of that theming. From the more recruiting and sending dudes in the desert to fight. The previous 3 games that I've played where I've won, I've barely focused on combat. It's been a secondary focus for me, but this time around I felt like I really need to get my hand in combat to
Well, the
to get things
Dreadnoughts
in.
really
So
help with that.
The
by-
Dreadnoughts are huge.
By adding these units that stick around on the board through different combats, while also giving you the ability to take over spaces if you need, the Dreadnoughts will just... You're always a threat.
Yeah.
You can always just jump into a combat and get yourself some extra resources.
But the theming there is great. Like you win and then your Dreadnought goes and sits in the middle of town for a little while and intimidates everyone into paying you.
Yeah. I mean, on theme as well, I think one of my favorite spaces on the board is the Highliner. That is the most thematic space on the board, not to mention the Shadowlud cards or whatever, but having your guys drop 5 troops all at once, as they do in like the film and the novel, it feels so good. Like, I think everyone did it bar Kai.
I didn't do it this
Well,
way.
you guys did it twice in one turn. You both managed to share that space and stop me from winning that round.
Yeah, and that was amazing. Like, you can just visualize all your 5 troops just dropping down all at once, as it would in the movie.
Just getting on the phone with the space and go like, look, I got a handful of spice. I need you to throw troops at these coordinates now.
It is kind of surprising that it costs spice and not Solari, but I get it from a balance point of view.
Oh, but I mean, it is a spacing guild.
True.
And they want
They want
spice.
But it is going to cost the money. Anyway, speaking of visualizing things, the art in this game, how are we feeling?
I love
I
it.
like it.
Very
I
good.
think it's spot on. I think
Just the drawn visuals on the board and on all the cards, like even just the Spice Must Flow card,
It
is
rides-
so evocative.
It rides the line between looking like the film's aesthetic, which
Yeah.
is beautiful, without being like screenshots
Yeah.
of the movie, like some tie-in games. I mean, the other Dune game, Betrayal, uses
Yeah.
headshots and things from the movies, but this is just enough to
do you
have its own
like-
style.
Do you have
Like,
Paul
the
and
way-
some of
Yeah.
the recognizable
Oh, right.
characters?
Yeah,
Like-
Paul
yeah,
is
like
down
if you want to
here.
visualize that, that is pretty much
Yeah,
the character as he is, and Paul Atreides, obviously Timothy Chalamet, straight out of the film.
It looks like it, but
But-
it's not jarring.
But it's and that's what's good.
Yep.
It's that close enough, but still different. So you're not getting that always thrown into your face.
Yeah.
I like that. That's what makes it for me.
I really love the iconography. It's such simple iconography, but really easy to tell what's going on. Even into the little things of all this stuff in the spaces,
Yeah.
that doesn't need to be there. That could be an empty box, but by adding those little things of this is what you're getting by going to this space, just makes the game, just ties back into that theme so well for me. And
I
the
know
fact that there's only a couple of resources in such a complex moving game, and so you've only got a couple of icons.
Yeah. And even though it's not part of the base game, the minis are gorgeous.
I was going to get there. I'm normally not a fan of deluxification of games. There's so many Kickstarters at the moment. Hey, if you want to support those, go right ahead. I'm just personally not the kind of person who'll drop $300 for a deluxe version of a game.
Yep.
$90 is what I paid for these extra minis, extra units. So worth it.
And you get the big box as well, right?
You get the big
you
box, so
can-
everything can pack away into it. And I believe there might be another expansion coming in the future. I don't know whether that'll pack away in there, but it's a very big box. But just being able to grab this. I am now an ally of the Spacing Guild. I get special stuff and you don't. It's over here now.
And it's like, other than, because the replacement for these sorts of tokens in the original are just a flat bit of cardboard. So
Cardstock.
Yeah, cardstock. So for you, like, to have that over there, I can clearly see the Spacing Guild thing with the ship. Is that a ship? I don't know.
It is
Yeah.
a ship. It's a
Look at
freighter.
the ship. It's
a
right.
freighter.
Yeah.
There's also, like
Seeing it across the table, actually sitting
Yeah.
up, is great. It just lends itself.
compare that to that. Like,
And I mean, the original components are still high quality.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them.
It's just
But if
nicer.
you're into the aesthetics of it and looking at the board and looking at the combat, especially, I was thinking earlier, when you can actually see a bunch of people with swords hanging out in there is a lot more interesting to look at than a fistful of cubes.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a lot more intimidating too, being like, man, Tom's got a lot of guys out there rather than it just being a mishmash of cubes.
I love the garrison system. It could very easily be just drop troops on the board.
Yeah.
But being able to put your troops down into this space and have them be a threat either this round or next round and build up to that is just so good.
And I think that's like when it happened, where we had an all-out war, where we had to stop Tom, otherwise he was going to win the game this round, and we had everything in there. And then after that round, everyone was cleaned out except for, I think Kai still had some troops left because he didn't fight, and his guys were ready for the next round, whereas we were then going from a clean slate.
Yeah.
And if you want to, you can always just put one guy in and leave your other guys in reserve because no one else is in the combat at the moment. It definitely has that, like, combat is not just one round, it's 2 rounds, if you think of it that way.
And I was thinking about
Saving up for the final conflict level 3s, like being ready to go for those 2 victory points. Just
Yeah, like when you clear the board, because end of it is recall, so you take everything off and it goes nice and neat again for you to start the next round. You look at those spaces and you're like, oh man, your enemies have got that many people sitting there ready and waiting. You're like, how am I going to build up another mass to try and win this next one if you've just won the last combat and you've spent all your units? So that happened to me. And also something I like that I just quickly want to touch on when it comes to combat is the ability to hold them back and not put them in straight away. Like that is something I feel like we didn't really use. Like you were doing it from an aspect where the things weren't even on the board yet and you were able to get them in and just drop them straight down. But having them there and then just maybe filtering them out like a 2 or 1 at a time to build up your army rather than just going all in and then hoping that you're just going to win.
Well, I mean, I did that where I held them back because I had the ability to sneak them all in at the end. Everyone had already gone all in. I had my guys in my garrison just chilling out going, I'm not really part of this combat. Don't worry about it, guys. And then I just launch everything all at once and just usurped the combat.
So I think on my
was
next
pretty great.
playthrough, I'm going to do more of that. Try and be a little bit slyly going, I'm not going to be in this, but then actually I am.
Well, that's what's really interesting about this game is you've only got 2 actions a turn, so you can't necessarily hold everything back. But because you're both, I think what I love most about this game is how well everything ties together. Because you're both playing a deck building game where you're having to plan for the future by thinking about what cards you need to then go to the different spaces that will then let you do the things you want, either by getting resources to go to other spaces or by, like, you need 8 Solari to get your 3rd action. And I got that very quickly, and that's usually my game plan every single time. But you don't necessarily have to. There are so many options because of the way everything interacts, but because you've got such limited action selection by only 2 or 3 actions, that you're either planning for the future or you're going, what do I need right now? And because both options are always available to you, this game is just constantly swinging back and forth in so many different ways. And that's why I love the tech tiles, because it makes everything swing back and forth in a way that you're having to consider what everyone's end game is going to be. In the base game, the intrigue cards could give you end game scoring, but you were never 100% sure whether someone would have them. And there are games that you have where someone has 2 endgame scorings. Suddenly they've got 4 extra points that you didn't see coming. That's just a massive swing. Tactiles, you know that I'm going to have 2 extra points, and you have to play around that. So much more engaging.
Yeah, very interesting, the tactiles. I think they were a good addition.
To have them there on the side, we all used them a heap. I didn't think they were all super overpowerful either. I think they were all like well balanced, which is one thing that I was like, oh, you're adding tactiles in, someone's going to have like 7 in there. It's like, yeah, they all do a little bit, but they're not like overbearing. It's not like you've got one that's just like, if you didn't have this person's going to win if they have this particular one.
I did not expect us to buy so many.
True that.
You only bought 1. I bought 6.
Yeah. Towards the end, I bought 3 specifically so that those cards I had that interacted with that had a trigger if you had 3 tech tiles. I originally hate drafted them to keep them away from Sean, and then
they brought you right back
in
into
the
the
end
game.
was like, I'm just going to get another tech tile and use them for victory points more than their actual face.
And to me, the fact that there's that many options in this game without it feeling bloated or complicated is just testament to good game design.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably one of the best amalgamation of 2 different genres or gameplay mechanics. So being a worker placement and being a deck builder, I think it did both of them equally as strong as the other. Whereas a lot of games that are deck builders with some other mechanic, one is always stronger than the other game mechanic. And it came up so many times when we were playing about it being like, it's a deck building game. It's a worker placement, which became sort of like an in-joke for the session. But I think that they worked really well together. And then you've also got the addition of combat as well, which is that third mechanic, which I think is not as
directly against each other.
Yeah, which is like not as strong as those other 2 mechanics of what the game is, but that was great to see that they did try and have 3 major mechanics all happening, and it all happened seamlessly. Whereas other games, like I said, you'll have 2 mechanics or 3 mechanics or 4 mechanics, and they all kind of, one is the primary mechanic with 4 offshoots or whatever. Whereas this was good to see like a excellent balance between that.
So before we get into our final thoughts, where we'd rank it on our board, where we'd rank it compared to last year once you had the expansion, is there any negatives? Is there anything that you're not feeling about this game? Because to me, if you ask me if I want to play a worker placement game, this will be my first pick. I love not Letters from Whitechapel. What's the D&D one that I'm blanking on right now?
Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep. I love Lords of Waterdeep. Throw me Lords of Waterdeep and Scoundrels and Skullports or whatever the expansion is called.
Yeah.
What a great time. Absolutely fantastic worker placement game. Give me Ray Cult. Man, that game, I need to see into the Matrix and figure things out and get just crazy worker placement combos going on. Just the way this game all flows together, the way that you're thinking from one round to the next, scratches every itch of both deck building and worker placement to me. And I will play this over any other worker placement.
So you have no complaints? Perfect game.
I don't think it's a perfect game, but it is perfect at what it does.
Yeah.
Nothing about this game ever felt unbalanced. Nothing about this game was ever confusing. There were times where we had to question things in the rulebook because we're like, can I get away with this to give myself the edge? Which is, I think, what you want in a game.
Yeah, I mean, not abusing the rules, but making sure you use them to your advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a game that lends yourself to thinking outside the box and thinking of different combos, and I love that.
And every resource and every opportunity. And I feel like there was a couple of misfires that we had where we didn't pick up the resources that we needed, but I think we eventually went, oh, actually, I've missed this resource. It's not too much of a big deal to like grab it at a little bit later because it didn't upset the balance or whatever. And that's because there's so many things and you're just like, oh, I don't think up until the end, it was only at the end when I was short 1 or 2 resources.
Yeah.
Everything else seemed to flow, and it was all because you were trying to maximize everything you could. And it is made in such a way that it was easy to like maximize your moves. Whereas some games where they get really complicated in worker placements and there's too many options and it makes it very hard to maximize your plays. Whereas this ran so smoothly to get that maximum play.
You're our rules lawyer, because you read the rulebook for this morning while I had to set everything up. Is this game, when you're picking your house card, is it deal out at random? Is it...
I think it's take 2 and pick 1,
I
which
was
is what
going
we
to say,
did.
if it's not that, that's a problem. Any game where where you have a starting thing that gives you a difference to everyone else, which, by the way, the different options in this, so good. There's the fact that I can focus on Solari and then get benefits from it, changes everything about what I'm aiming for. Any game that is that you have to have the option of different ones to choose. Everyone has different play styles. Letting people see what different stuff is out there gives them an idea of what's happening in the game and lets them play the way they want to play.
So by the rule book, you may choose or select at random.
Okay.
So it leaves it up to you.
Deal 2, pick 1. Best way to play.
Yeah.
So, and huge amount of like good replayability, huge amount of characters to choose from. Like
I did not expect the expansion to add. It adds another 6.
Yeah, there was
Which is
quite a few.
amazing.
I
There
don't
is a
know the
big
exact
pile.
total, but there is a lot. And like they, like, and also they we explained during the playthrough, but they go in different difficulties. So you've got, one spot, which is easy.
Yeah, how'd you go with your 3-1?
I got dealt 2 3s. So I had a choice of hard, which we looked at and we were like, not really sure how this works, and I'm still not sure how it works. And my other one, I think, worked out pretty well, but it was brutal not getting the same amount of spice as everyone else. There was a period where I had so much spice that it wasn't a concern. But
It's worth mentioning there is a 4 complexity one in here as well.
Wow, okay. Component quality-wise, everything's awesome.
Fantastic.
It's proper wood components, decent thickness card stock.
Yep.
These are chunky. And the first player marker from the expansion has some decent. Just drop it on the table and
there's
see
nothing chunkier.
so good.
Yeah.
Even if you don't upgrade to the deluxe, the base game components, there's no complaints to be had there, I don't think. I mean, maybe the car, I like those like sort of, what's the term, like
Letterbond.
canvas or like letterbond, is it? Is that what the type of card is? That's sort of matte rather than gloss. Personal preference. I think the edges on those cards hold up better. Some of these are starting to get a little
Shuffled up.
a little shuffle sort of nicks on the edge.
But that's
Nothing
okay.
that makes it unplayable, but I would personally
you can sleeve
prefer slightly thicker and,
Yep.
harder
So
cards.
no other complaints?
No, I can't. I was just trying to think. I can't think of anything.
I think the only thing for some people, and it depends on what you're after, that was a long game, and we were doing it on stream, so it takes longer. But even if we were just sitting down doing it ourselves, being the people we are that want to try and see into the Matrix, I could easily see that still taking us 3 hours doing it just us. So I think the length is, in some cases, a negative. Sometimes you don't want to sit down for a 3-hour game.
100%.
But it could have been over a lot quicker. We just did not want to
wanna
give up
fight
the
it
fight.
out?
We did
We
not
just
want to
100%
let
lose.
it go.
No.
So we got to consider where we'd rank it. Now, this is our first stream of the year. Twitch.tv/Nerds of the West. You can join us. So we're going to give this game a rough out of 10 score to put it somewhere roughly on our board if you want to grab it out of the way. Let's try not to move all those too much. So we'll put the board out on our handy dandy.
There is another one
token
down there
controllers.
as well somewhere. I think.
So this is our ranking board, our Nerds of the West ranking list, where we rank every single game that we play. As I said, not based on if one game is better than another, just if given the opportunity, what we would prefer to play. I give this game, with the expansion, a 9 out of 10. There are other games that I would play over it, but when it comes to worker placements, let's go. The expansion just makes the game better. It gives you more opportunities. It gives you different ways to play and interact with all the mechanics in the game. I would recommend picking it up.
Yep. Pretty much agree. The base game is very, very good. I think the expansion improves it because it balances a few things. I don't know if I was just lucky or exploited the game in those games we talked about earlier. So it fixed that to an extent. So I'd probably want to play it again with the expansion to be 100% sure, but I reckon the expansion improves the game and keeps it up roughly a 9. I'd say you're about on the money.
Yeah. For me as well, you said everything that I was going to say, so I'd give it a 9.
Yeah, I would give it a 9 as
I
well.
was not expecting unanimous.
I really, really did not like my first game that I played with this, and that was the only game that I played previous, which was only the base game. I just did not enjoy it, and that's because it was that worker placement crunch, and I was just getting thought at every move that I was trying to do, which really just put me back. And I was sitting there for 4 hours just on the back leg, and there was no way for me to catch up or do anything different. Whereas I think the expansion definitely had a lot more free flow. You've got extra options on the side. Everyone was focusing a little bit more on different things, which I think it played out better. The only criticism I think I have is that I'm not entirely sure if the base game or the expansion is better because they play very different. Like the spice turns into currents, into Solari in the base game, whereas this has the shipping track. So it's kind of like there are definite areas that are like it's stronger in this game and it's weaker in this other version, which is not necessarily a bad thing because that makes the expansion really good because it turns like spice is used for a very specific thing and not turning it into money. But it also made that this game was very hard for Kai and myself to get coin, which is like a balancing act. So
But it was very hard for you to get that, but you didn't struggle at the same time. You were still, like, both of you were still in the game at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think we used our resources differently so that money or Solari wasn't as critical. I think that may have been a mistake because you need Solari to get your third worker out. which is important early game. I mean, the earlier you can do it, the more actions you get in the game.
Yeah.
I think I need to play the base game again to compare it.
Quite
I
possibly.
did not have a good first game,
Yep.
but I really, really enjoyed that, and I'm sure the base game is equally as good because you guys all loved it last year.
So for now, that's going to go right up the top of the board. That's a solid 9 out of 10.
So do we say the expansion goes above it?
Let's put the expansion above it, just to give us an idea of where things sit
I think
later
you guys
on.
enjoyed the expansion more.
I definitely enjoyed the expansion more. Even just if it added just tech tiles, would have been better. But that is our thoughts on Dune Imperium with the Rise of X expansion. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any thoughts, please leave them down below. And come say hi on Twitch at some point in the future. We'd love to have you. We are Nerds of the West. Thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you next time.